once again, it's Matthew here from MatthewNorthMusic, and this is my first video of 2024. I don't normally date when I do these things, but I thought as it's the first one of the year, I'd wish you all Happy New Year, and thank you for continuing to watch my videos and supporting them. And as ever, if you do like these kind of videos, please think about hitting the subscribe button down below. It really does help this channel to grow. Now, today's video is me out in the shed, and while I'm out here, I may as well tell you, behind me you can see this massive rack full of stuff, and that's what I'm going to be concentrating on for most of the next few months, because this rack's actually too big for this room, so I need to get all the bits of junk that I've acquired over the last few years and either fix them or dump them, depending on whether they're fixable or not, and clear this out, because I need to get this out of here because I just simply do not have enough room to work comfortably. So that's my next major project. Anyway, today's project is something very, very simple, and it's this, the humble guitar lead. Now, this is actually a Whirlwind guitar lead made in the 1980s, and these are very much loved and revered because it's good quality cable and they coil up nicely and they're pretty reliable. And this lead's actually about 25-30 years, maybe even slightly older than that, and it belongs to my friend Rich from the band Betamax, who I have been friends with for a number of years, and he just said, can I fix it for him, because it's his favourite cable. So we're going to have a little look. Now, my cable is plugged into the cable tester, and what I've been doing is I've been bending the cable as I go along to see if anything happens. And I've got as far as about a metre from one of the ends. And if I keep bending the cable, we get to a point where we see the lights flash. And just about here on the cable, if I flex it a little bit, here, this point here, if I reset that again, there. And so it's about here on the cable where there is a break, and it's about a metre from one end, and it is normally within one end or the other of the cable where we do have these breaks. So I'm going to go back about 6 inches from there. So the lead is going to be a bit shorter, but I'm going to cut the wire, and then hopefully we won't have any more problems with this cable once we've resoldered everything. So first I'm going to cut the cable there. And then I'm going to strip the ends, and I'm going to use my new little tool that I got from the supermarket a little while ago, and it should be quite good for getting the plastic sleeving off. Let's have a look, see if that's done it. Now it needs to be a bit tighter than that. Yeah, probably about there. So we just do that, pop it in the jaws like that, turn it around a couple of times, and there we have our wire. Now the wire's looking a little bit, it's got a little bit of I say corrosion, it's like, yeah, it's a little bit, I don't know what the right word is for it, to be honest, but yeah, it's aged. It's definitely had some age, so it could well be why it broke in the end. But what I will do is, now I've done that, is on this, I think I can trim the end. Can I trim the end? No, it's not quite big enough. I have to use wire cutters, so I'm just going to use my cutters, and we're just going to take the end off the wire. Got to very gently do it, because obviously I don't want to cut through the actual wire, I just want to cut through the sleeving. And there's our wire. And if I just stick this on my meter that I've got here, and we'll just clip, I'll just stick that up there, then you can see it a bit better. If I clip this on one end, which is on the signal, I will then pop this on the other end and see if we get a connection. And Yeah, it's saying about 3 ohms, which is obviously showing some resistance, but then, you know, it's quite an old cable, but I'll just make sure it's not shorting. No, there's no short there. And I'll just connect it to here as well. No, there's no short there. So what we're going to do now is we're now going to solder this back to its original connector. Now, one thing you need to do first, obviously, is to make sure that you've got the dead end, because you don't want to take the connector off the wrong end. But we've got the right one, so I'm just going to snip that, and we're going to firstly take off the sleeve. It won't quite come off, so I might just use a pair of pliers just to remove that. And so we've got our outer sleeve, and we've got a strain relief here, and then that just fits onto the new cleaned end. So we'll pop that in first. And then we put our strain relief in, because the one thing you do not want to do is you do not want to solder it up and then forget to put that on, because some connectors, like the Nutric ones, sometimes have a split in the side and they just clip on, but these don't. And if you were to put a split in it, it would lose all its strength and it would just get damaged in no time. So it's always best to do it properly. Now here's our actual jack, and the jack itself is actually in reasonably good condition. It's not loose or anything, so it's just going to be a case of desoldering these wires and resoldering them, and it looks like this has probably been soldered sometime in the past. Now, it's always good to use one of these helping hands because it just makes life so much easier. It's usually quite good to pop on a bit of fresh solder first, just to get the old solder off, because it heats up and helps melt everything. If you have one of those reworking tools, it's quite useful to use one of those, but I can't be bothered to get one out at the moment, so I should just stick with this. So there's our signal wire out, and now we'll take our screen off, which seems to be soldered through the back. So it's just actually there's quite a lot of solder on here actually, so we could do with getting rid of some of that. And yeah, when you do get a lot of this old solder, you do sometimes need to run in quite a bit of new just to heat it up and get it off the plug. What you don't want to do is just solder, you know, good solder-ons are bad. So we've got most of that there now. So all I need to do now is to see if I can swipe a load of it off. I think I've managed to get most of that off actually. Yeah, I think I have. And the solder at the front, again, I shall heat it up with some fresh solder like this, and I'll just put my desoldering pump on it, just take off what's left. One lump, should be another good dollop here. Yep, there we go. So that's nice and clean now. So we can now get our wire, which is here, and we shall tin the wire first. Now we need to look at the length of it actually, because it needs to go fairly close. We actually need to take a little bit more off the end. So I'm going to snip a little bit more of the insulation off. There we go. And we can now tin the end. So we twist the wires together, and then we get some fresh solder, and we pop the solder on the wire. So we'll do the signal wire first. Now if it doesn't soak in or take in, then it might be an idea to add some flux, particularly because it's quite old cable, but it seems to be okay on this one. Just going to check this and make sure it's neatly twisted, because what you don't want is any little shards of wire sort of hanging off, because they might short circuit the actual connection. So we're just going to stick some solder on here. My tip on my soldering iron actually isn't all that good, and I have actually got a new soldering iron which I will reveal very soon, although it's very similar to this, it's just another Antex. So we'll just snip off that as well. So we've basically now got the wires at about the right size to fit on the jack connector. And so what I'm going to do first, I'm actually going to solder the signal wire on first, which you probably can't see all that well from this angle, but it's the right angle for me to solder on. So we stick some of that hot stuff on there and hold it into place. Leave it for a couple of seconds, and yeah, that's nice and solid now. And then I'm just going to pop the earth wire into place, which is there, as you can see. And then we're just going to solder that into place as well. So again, fresh solder, hot stick, and just slide that in where it should go, which is about there. Give that a couple of seconds, and yeah, there we have it. There's our wire soldered to the connector. So we can now pop on our sleeve into place, and we then get the cover, and we can then just pop that on and do it up. And these are actually quite tight, so I'm actually going to just hold this with a pair of pliers on the end, just so I can get it on nice and tight and snug. And yeah, there we go. Okay, well, we've now got our cable resoldered. This is our new soldered end, and I'm going to pop this into the output of my cable tester, and I'm going to pop that into this little amplifier, and we'll switch it on and see if we get any sound. Yep, we got sound. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to literally wiggle the lead, just in case we get any dropout. And no, it's all good. It's all good to go. Now, what I am going to do as a preventative measure is the other jack on the other end, sorry, which is this one here, is I'm going to also resolder this, and I'm going to do it by just snipping off that much cable, because over time, when cables get weak, it's always around this part of the cable here, and that's quite often where they break. And it was actually quite unusual that this one broke further down, but that probably happened because it got twisted around an amplifier or a speaker. Quite often, if you have drop a speaker cabinet on a cable, it can damage the lead. So as another preventative measure, I'm going to visit. It does feel a little bit softer here than it does here, so I'm going to cut that right off here, and like the other end, I'm going to resolder it, and then we will have a perfect guitar lead that, all being well, will last another 30 plus years. Well, sometimes the simple fixes are quite often the most satisfying, and here we have a lead that's probably done more gigs than I've ever done, and it's going to last for another however many years. So, you know, if you do just learn the very basics of electronics, just to solder your own cables, if nothing else, you can save yourself literally hundreds of pounds by not having to throw away leads and buy new ones, when a little bit of repair is all you need. And certainly getting hold of one of these cable testers is a really good investment, because you not only can test the leads to make sure they're working, but this also acts as a sound generator, so you can use it for plugging a lead in, plugging it into the other end, giving it a wiggle, see if you can find the break. And also these, you can test XLR cables, you can test MIDI cables, you can test phono cables, you can test bantam jacks. You can pretty much do everything on these, and you can do mini jacks as well. And you can pick one of these little Behringer testers up for about £30. So I would definitely recommend getting one of these. Anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.